The hidden cost of inflation. How the rising cost of living is eating into Americans' budgets. The cost of living in the United States has been rising faster than the average income, which means that it's getting more expensive for Americans to purchase the necessities of life, such as food and housing. In fact, inflation, the rising cost of living, has been steadily increasing since 1960. While this may seem like an abstract concept at first, it actually has serious implications for all Americans in several ways. This article will explore what inflation really means and how it affects you and your household budget. Hi, I just want to thank you for visiting my channel once again. In this video, we are talking somehow about this inflation we are all going through right now. How is it affecting our pockets, our daily lives in general, and what the actual government is doing to try and fight it? I am not sure, but some say that it is necessary to bring the economy back to its balance. Anyways, my friends, let's dive in and check some facts. 2 types of inflation. In the United States, there are 2 types of inflation that are affecting the economy today. The first is called demand pull inflation. This happens when the demand for goods and services in the economy outpaces the supply. This can lead to prices for goods and services rising, which in turn can lead to wage increases as businesses try to attract workers. The second type of inflation is called cost push inflation. This happens when the costs of inputs like raw materials or labor rise, and businesses pass those costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Inflation can be a hidden cost of living for Americans, as it can eat into their budgets and make everyday items more expensive. Causes and effect. Inflation is the rate at which the prices of goods and services rise. It's usually caused by a combination of things, like an increase in the cost of raw materials, a decrease in the supply of goods, or an increase in the money supply. Inflation can have a major effect on people's budgets. As prices go up, people have to spend more money to buy the same amount of goods and services. This can lead to a decrease in their standard of living. Inflation can also cause people to save less money because they don't know how much their money will be worth in the future. Even if inflation rates are low enough that workers can keep up with it by receiving cost of living raises, their buying power still decreases over time. Just how much inflation are we talking about? The Federal Reserve targets a 2% inflation rate, but we've been seeing prices rise at a much faster pace lately. Over the past 12 months, inflation has averaged 3.4%. That means that the cost of living has gone up by more than 1% since this time last year. And it's not just gas and groceries that are getting more expensive. Prices for housing, healthcare, and education have all been rising at a faster than normal pace. This is putting a strain on American families who are already struggling to make ends meet. There are 4 major reasons why these price increases can be so painful. For many Americans, the cost of food is their biggest expense every month. Yet, if you think about it, food doesn't actually increase in price when the price of gas goes up or there's an outbreak of COVID. In other words, eating costs should stay roughly the same as long as people can still afford to eat. Americans also spend most of their disposable income paying for their homes or renting apartments. So even if they are fortunate enough to have a job with a paycheck that's steady each week or month, rising home prices may force them out of affordable areas and require them to work longer hours or both. How inflation affects retirement planning in the United States. According to a recent study by the Federal Reserve, inflation has been eating into Americans' budgets, particularly those on fixed incomes. The study found that while the cost of living has risen steadily over the past decade, wages have not kept pace. This means that retirees and other fixed-income Americans are seeing their purchasing power decline. To make matters worse, income taxes are calculated as a percentage of adjusted gross income. When your income is stagnant but prices continue to rise, you're taxed at a never-increasing rate. One way for senior citizens in particular to avoid this issue is by enrolling in supplemental retirement plans, such as IRAs or 401 plans that pay out dividends or interest instead of cash. These types of plans can be very valuable for people who want their money working for them instead of losing it to taxes year after year. Ways to combat inflation. 1. Get a handle on your spending. Track where you are spending your money and see where you can cut back. 2. Make a budget and stick to it. Once you know where your money is going, you can make a plan for how to save. 3. Invest in yourself. Take some time to learn about personal finances and investing. 4. Stay disciplined with your spending. When inflation hits, it can be tempting to spend more than you can afford. 5. Save regularly. Investing in a savings account or retirement fund can help you keep up with inflation. 6. Consider alternatives to traditional investments. There are other ways to grow your money, such as real estate or commodities investing. 7. Learn to live comfortably with less. It's possible that you may have to work longer, retire later, and/or buy cheaper goods so that you can maintain a certain standard of living during times of high inflation. 8. Keep an eye on the big picture. Understand what is happening around the world and what effect this will have on prices at home if necessary. 9. Stay informed about how governments respond to inflationary pressures, whether they intervene by raising interest rates or printing money. 10. Plan ahead for an emergency expense, for example, car repairs, last-minute doctor's visit. 11. Keep credit cards only for emergencies and don't use them unless you have cash in hand to pay off the balance immediately when it's due. What can the government of the United States do to control inflation in 2022? The answer to this question depends on what's causing inflation in the first place. If it's due to an increase in demand, perhaps from too much money chasing too few goods, then the government can use contractionary monetary policy to slow the economy down and reduce inflationary pressures. If, on the other hand, inflation is caused by cost-push factors such as rising oil prices or wages, then there's not much the government can do other than try to mitigate the effects through things like targeted subsidies or income tax cuts. In any case, it's important to remember that inflation is a normal part of a healthy economy, and that moderate levels of inflation are actually good for economic growth. Will the Federal Reserve keep raising the rates? In order to get a handle on current inflation, it's important to understand what it is and how it works. In short, inflation is the rising cost of living. It's caused by a number of factors, but the main one is the Federal Reserve. The Fed sets interest rates, which can have a big impact on inflation. If rates are too low, inflation can spiral out of control. So far, the Fed has been trying to keep rates low to encourage spending and boost the economy. But as the economy continues to improve, there's a chance that the Fed will start to raise rates in 2022. This could have a big impact on American families who are already struggling with rising costs. In conclusion, the reality is that for many Americans, the cost of living has been rising faster than wages for years. And while the Federal Reserve strives to keep inflation in check, there are signs that prices are starting to outpace income growth once again. For families already struggling to make ends meet, this is a worrisome trend. So what can be done to help ease the burden? A lot depends on where you live and how much you earn. For example, New Yorkers may be able to take advantage of low-cost housing, but they'll have difficulty affording other goods and services in their area. By contrast, residents of North Dakota will have trouble paying off their mortgages given the low-paying jobs available there. However, all Americans need to consider one way or another about whether they're better off than they were 5 years ago, and if not, how they might change course. Thanks once again for watching. Please like and subscribe until the next. Take care.